Hello and welcome to Beyond Games, the YouTube gaming channel all about what's next. I'm John Jordan. So today we're looking at this Twitter thread from John Lay, which I thought was interesting. I wouldn't say I 100% agree with it, but it's worth kind of unpacking. It's quite a long one. So John is a partner at A16Z, which is Andreesen Horowitz, one of the big VC companies, and actually A16Z is their kind of more crypto focused kind of investment arm. He's interesting in the sense of kind of having an involvement in games. So he's worked at Riot Games and Tencent Global. Tencent own Riot Games. Riot Games obviously famously known for mainly for League of Legends, but other games as well, and kind of creating or at least popularizing the MOBA kind of movement beyond kind of what Valve were doing, I suppose. So he's a man who should know about these things because he invests in companies, invests in tech companies, has been involved in tech and games companies. And I thought this was interesting in terms of a Beyond Games sort of angle. I definitely agree with his kind of core kind of framing of the situation. The best apps today are games in disguise. So basically what he's saying there is kind of games have, to some degree, the mechanics of video games have taken over the world to a large extent. Now, I think we can sort of argue a little bit about whether everything is a game. If everything is a game, then sort of the game part of it is a bit meaningless. But I think there are some interesting things that he brings out here. So basically, he's looking at these companies, these kind of generally they're sort of apps or web products, and he's saying that on the social side of things, they are, they're games. On in the work side of things, they're games, mental health, finance, fitness, education. He's saying there's game elements in all of that. So let's have a look, see what he says. First, game-like, not the same as gamification. So this is an interesting point because the term gamification is not liked in the games industry. And he's saying gamification merely applies to surface mechanics like points and badges without understanding design principles. I don't necessarily think that's the case. I think gamification badly done is this. Gamification, whether we like the term or not, is actually what he's talking about. He's basically saying the core ideas of games are being applied to generalized products. So as ever, we're arguing about definitions here, I suppose. So the best game-like experiences focus on retention. So to some degree, this is true, but it's not like games were the first thing that come up that increase retention. I mean, you could argue books or newspapers, or lots of analog things have retention. Games have sort of, I would say, understood about retention from other industries, although retention is a key mechanic for games. So he's saying well-designed games. World of Warcraft, Candy Crush have our products that lasted for 10 years, but it kind of people have bank accounts for 10 years, don't they? So if you're a little bit careful about this sort of stuff, he's saying gamification basically boosts short-term engagement, but wears users out. I mean, that's kind of interesting when we come back to these sort of products. Interesting, he's not put Facebook in there. I guess all of these products have their own life cycle, their own churn. People churn out of these things. So it's not like having these features means they last forever. Not everything lasts for 10 years. So it's saying a general framework for game experiences is as motivation, mastery, and feedback. So this is basically mastery is sort of saying everything is a meta game. Everything, and we've seen a lot with free to play that sort of the meta game, that the wider, the more long-term goals become probably more important over time than the kind of short-term what you're doing. So he's saying here the best games motivate users by intrinsic goals. This is a kind of a little example he has from Mega Man X, not particularly well-known game, and actually lots of games do this sort of thing. So you see this actually for lots of tutorials. You're defeated to begin with by a big boss, and then someone comes along and sort of kind of tells you, kind of saves you. And he says, if you keep going in this game, you're going to become more powerful than me. So we see this a lot actually in Asian developed games, where in the tutorial, the first thing that happens is you meet your big boss and get destroyed, and then you kind of start from scratch. I'm not sure how much that works for Facebook or banking apps or meditation. But I guess it's kind of pointing out there is a goal that you're starting off weaker and you're going to get better. And I suppose, it's difficult because with product apps, you don't really want to have this idea that you're just starting to use it, but you don't necessarily, if you can't gain interest from it at the start, if you can't use a banking app, or you can't use a meditation app to begin with, then you just come out straight away. So you have to be a little bit careful, I think, with some of these, the framing of which he uses. There is a thing about mastery. Again, this depends a little bit on the app or the application or the product. Obviously, you get better at sort of working out how to use Instagram, so that the mastery is there, I suppose, to some degree, but not necessarily for a banking app or something. Maybe not so much. The path to mastery should be fair and based on skill and choice, not luck. Well-tuned difficulty creates flow. I guess what's interesting within games is the game developer, the game designer. If they're good, they actually create this nice idea of flow where even if they're not defining specific goals, they're defining a way of playing that is interesting. Now, with real life apps, with like say meditation apps or banking apps or grocery apps, that's you don't necessarily want flow in all these things. You don't want, one of the problems with things like Facebook and Instagram is that the hours fly by and you've basically wasted all your time not doing anything. So some of these things are dangerous, and maybe good designers of products that aren't games are actually kind of quite careful about how they use flow. Anyway, intrinsic goals and long-term path to mastery is what makes strong retention. Feedback. So games are very good at feedback, and in general, making complex things simple. Now, in a sense, games tend to do this through repetition. So you just repeat things over and over again, and you sort of work out what's going on. Again, other products can not necessarily do that. They should be designed that the mastery is actually much more a much more sort of complex, deep process. And in fact, the mastery for many of these apps is you just do it faster. For games, that becomes a bit of a problem. If you're just doing stuff faster and churning through, then that's not a great retention mechanic. With some things, maybe I think something like Twitter, you get better at using it. Maybe Twitter's not the best example. Okay, Super Mario Brothers famously taught users via death. So that's kind of a feedback loop. Candy Crush rewards users for matching 3 candies with colourful explosions. Sort of, I guess. So now he's going to say popular apps embrace these what he's calling kind of core things. So social networks are game-like. They connect each other, express themselves, and there's a path to mastery. So this is very specific. Do we necessarily want to build an audience? Not necessarily. I think maybe for some people, I don't think that's the case. Feedback loop is definitely likes and follows, but I think for a lot of people now, actually, you don't want to build an audience. You want to have the audience of people that you want. Particularly, I guess, if we're more careful about privacy, we might have a fixed audience of real life people that we know. Certainly on Twitter, I don't want to grow an audience. I want to kind of understand what's going on. I don't know this superhuman email app. A zero inbox. I mean, there's lots of discussion about that. I'm not sure that is something that is going to be very popular. Let's put it that way. So this is definitely much more interesting because something like a meditational thing is, or what is this? This is a okay. So this is a more game-like thing because this is something internally you're trying to get to a certain state, and I think this is So right, okay. So it's basically getting you to stay in this app and not go off and check Twitter and Instagram. So if you hang in there for a long time, you build this lovely forest. I don't think it's that lovely a forest. I don't know. I suppose it gives some intrinsic ideas. This one I'm not sure about at all why this is into a game. So lots of these things now you can donate. You can donate your loose change to a savings account or even to a charity. That's a bit more interesting. I think you can do stuff around that. There can be you can basically prove to people over time that by just setting by changing this setting, you're saving money or you're kind of building up charity. I think whether that's a game thing, I don't think. I think that's a user experience. I think sometimes we can overplay the game thing. And then we have these other ones here, blah blah blah. So zombie run game. I mean, that is a game. So that's when you basically when you go for a run, you play an audio mission, and the zombies get close to you, and you can hear them, and then you run faster. I mean, that's a game. So I don't know why that's gamification. And then language turning into a game. Yeah, I mean that I would say is I mean that's, we know games are good at teaching stuff, but you have to be a little bit careful because it can't just be the game. The teaching stuff has to come first. So anyway, the core principles of game design have been integrated into many of the top apps today. Well, he's defined these core principles, which I guess kind of agree with. This can work, but I think in general you have to be quite careful. Games are very specific, and games, although they have kind of elements of work and elements of entertainment, they are games. And when you have other apps that are, ranging from banking apps to learning, there is a different thing going on there, and it can't be. You have to have sort of a more hardcore element in there which drives you through things that can't be just exciting to play. So I sort of agree with the general framing of what he's trying to do. I disagree, because I disagree with everyone. I disagree with actually probably a lot of the substance he's put out there. But I do think, as I come back to the beginning, the interesting point here is that games, the reason that games have grown as an industry over the last 20, 30 years is they do capture something inherent in how we interact with things, and that has proved very valuable. And that's why games have become so sort of powerful in the world. And there's very useful techniques in games that can be used in other applications and in other settings, but clearly you have to use the right ones, and it depends on exactly what you're trying to build. There's a big difference between finance and fitness and education and mental health, in particular mental health at a serious level, and social. So anyway, I thought it was good framing, even if some of the stuff I disagreed with. What do you think? But yeah, you can tell me in the comments, can't you? Thanks for watching the video. This is Beyond Games, thinking about how games are changing the world and how the world is changing games and what comes next. Please subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and see you again soon.